One night, without much thought or intent, Paya wrote a short story. It was a fictional story, and in this story, she created a universe in which Zelda never existed. It initially started as a playful hypothesis. She assured herself she was merely indulging in an innocent creative pursuit. Her pen danced across the paper as she wrote it. Pages of her diary ripped and tore as she hurriedly flipped to the next one, her scribbling becoming more erratic. Each night she was lost in a trance state, and after a week, when the story was complete, she rejoiced and shed tears. Her tale ended with she and Link coming together in joyous union. Finally, there existed a world in which Paya was Link's one and only. And so, night after night, she indulged in the ritual of reading her own words, savoring the satisfaction that welled up as she reached the story's end. And then one night, she thought to write another story, and another, and another. In a matter of weeks, she authored an entire anthology of fiction. Her stories were charmingly simple, depicting tender encounters between she and Link, their love blossoming in the magical worlds she'd crafted. Each tale concluded with the promise of eternal happiness, Paya and Link soaring into the horizon together, their love destined to endure for all time, happily ever after. The sheer elation she felt, the intoxicating joy of seeing her character's happiness, became an addiction. While reading, she'd lose herself for hours, completely unaware of the passing of the time. It was during these moments that she would taste Link's lips, feel his fingertips tracing her skin, as if transported into another realm. When she'd finally set down the story, it was like surfacing from a deep dive, a dizzying disorientation in the now unfamiliar real world. And then one night, as she clutched her latest manuscript, her hands, once steady, began to tremble. It had suddenly dawned on her. She would never be able to live out her dreams. The painful contrast between the happiness she imagined for herself and the loneliness she felt in her waking life began to grow increasingly evident. She understood fully that her dreams were nothing more than delusions, distorted by the prism of unrequited love. Yet, she couldn't escape the clutches of her desire. That same night, in the hours before dawn, Paya sat, staring at her reflection in the mirror, her eyes vacant and hollow. The mirror, a silent witness to her unraveling, revealed a woman of striking physical beauty. She studied her reflection, acknowledging her own allure, questioning if Link saw it too. Her gaze lingered until she caught herself staring. It was reminiscent of a passage from her own stories, the heroine, seated by a mirror, lost in the reverie of love, as she stared longingly into her own reflection. Except for the fact that, in Paya's stories, the heroine always enjoyed her happy ending. A pang of envy coursed through Paya then, prompting a thought to form. What if there was a way for her to fulfill her dreams? A way she could wield the author's pen and rewrite the narrative? It was a thought she had long resisted, a whispered temptation she had always turned away from. But now, it grew louder, more persuasive, clawing its way into her imagination, compelling her to confront the possibilities. Could she play the role of Helia, guiding her own fate? Could she truly forsake her duty for love? Despite her longing, she knew the people of Kakariko village depended on her leadership. Grandmother Impa had entrusted the village and their sacred history to her safekeeping. And no matter how Paya's loneliness raged late at night, she knew she could not simply cast aside her responsibilities on a foolish gamble. However, one night, after staring for too long into her own reflection, a shudder ran through Paya as she once again recognized the version of herself depicted in those fictional tales. As frustration lingered, the thought resurfaced. What if she didn't have to be a passive reader of her own life? The Shaker had acted decisively before to alter destiny's course. In that moment, Link's smile flashed in her mind, and almost without realizing it, the words, "I want him," escaped her lips. Another sliver of a thought began to take shape, slowly forming, molding, and growing. Paya shifted her gaze to the row of books arranged on her bookshelf. Her eyes glided over the titles as she rose from the floor, her hand settling on a weathered book with yellowed pages. The emblem of a dark red Sheikah eye was imprinted on the front. With a gentle breath, she blew off the accumulated dust before opening it, her gaze fixated on a specific page. The book pulsed with anticipation as her hand descended, a finger tracing the ancient text, its words urging her to take that first step. However, just as she was about to delve deeper into its contents, she paused. A knot of uncertainty tugged at her, urging her to step back from the edge of the cliff where she teetered. The decision looming before her carried the weight of kingdoms. Her heart, torn between duty and desire, beat with a frantic rhythm as she pondered her next move. Amidst her stress and confusion, images of Link began to naturally materialize, unbidden yet impossible to ignore. Memories of him became a soothing balm for her frayed nerves. In her mind's eye, he stood there, strong, holding her in his arms, atop a mountain peak. His eyes exuded warmth as he whispered those three little words. The scene played out in countless variations, each one ending with his heartfelt declaration. It existed as a simple dream, but it possessed a power over her she could not resist, guiding her toward a precipice she never thought she'd face. She felt herself fastened by a mere string of yarn as she peered over the edge. Her breath quickened, the sharp intake of air stirred by the sudden surge of adrenaline. The exhilaration of the unknown, the electrifying pull of risk and reward, all blended in a heady cocktail of hope and fear. Her fingers tingled with excitement. And in the wake of vanishing innocence, like delicate petals carried away by the wind, Paya made her decision. With an exhale, she cast aside lingering doubts, discarding them like old, tattered garments. The gradual erosion of her self-restraint went unnoticed. Her focus was now entirely absorbed in the book. The room became still, the only sound the gentle crackle of the candle's flame as Paya's decision settled upon her like a cloak. The pages of the ancient Sheikah tome felt alive under her touch, as if the secrets held within were responding to the resolve in her heart. The decision she had made was not a light one. It was filled with the gravity of altering not just her own fate, but potentially the fabric of reality itself. The Sheikah were known for their deep understanding of the mystical forces that governed their world, and Paya, bearing the bloodline, felt the weight of her heritage now more than ever. She was a keeper of law, a guardian of ancient histories, and a protector of the sacred. To step beyond these roles into the realm of altering destiny was to walk a path fraught with peril. Yet the image of Link, the hero who had saved Hyrule time and again, infused her with a sense of purpose that eclipsed all fears. Paya's eyes scanned the text, ancient glyphs that spoke of rituals and incantations, of gateways through time and space, and of the delicate art of weaving one's will into the threads of destiny. Her heart quickened at the possibilities, at the thought of a world where her love was not unrequited, where she stood by Link as his equal and his chosen. The candlelight continued to flicker, casting shadows that danced across the walls, as if the very room anticipated the stirrings of magic. Paya's mind raced with the stories she had written, the worlds she had crafted, and the love she had poured into the pages of her diary. They were not just fantasies. They were blueprints of a reality she yearned to manifest. With a deep, steadying breath, Paya whispered an incantation, her voice growing in confidence. The words were ancient Shika, passed down through generations, meant only for the direst of circumstances. She felt the air in the room thicken, the energies converging around her, listening, waiting for her command. As she spoke the final syllables, a gust of wind extinguished the candle, plunging the room into darkness. A silence enveloped her, profound and complete. In that moment, Paya realized there was no turning back. She had set forth on a journey not just of the heart, but of the very essence of her being. The fate of Paya, descendant of the Shika, was now intertwined with the magic of her ancestors, with the legends of heroes and the silent vows of love unspoken. In the silence of the dark, a new chapter awaited, one that Paya had the power to write with the full force of her will. And so, in the embrace of a pitch-black space, Paya closed the tome, her destiny no longer confined to the pages of her diary, but set upon the vast canvas of the world itself.